tearing through the haze. Kids lost screaming in the system's maze. Lies unfold behind paper-thin walls, stealing hope, ripping dreams, all the calls. Gunning for justice, we won't back down. Fighting for the lost in every broken town. Judges blind, caseworkers turn their eyes. Lift your fist, scream, their lies won't paralyze. Families they shatter with the stroke of a pen. Truth buried deep, oh here we go again. Gunner's voice pounding, raising up the fight. Justice ain't a whisper, it's a battle tonight. Gunning for justice, we won't back down. Fighting for the lost in every broken town. Judges blind, caseworkers turn their eyes. Lift your fist, scream, their lies won't paralyze. Families they shatter with the stroke of a pen. Truth buried deep, oh here we go again. Gunner's voice pounding, raising up the fight. Justice ain't a whisper, it's a battle tonight. System cracks, red tape wins tight, but the spirit won't break, even in the night. From the ashes, the cry gonna rise up strong. With every heartbeat, it fuels the song. Corruption crawls, spreading like a fire. But passion burns hotter, crawling up higher. The system ain't ready for the storm that's us. One by one, we're breaking their rust. Corruption crawls, spreading like a fire. But passion burns hotter, crawling up higher. The system ain't ready for the storm that's us. One by one, we're breaking their rust.
Hey look, this for every mama got her baby snatched on some bogus shit. For every pops they locked out the crib like he ain't blood. CPS, y'all been eating off pain for too long. We know what you on, but now it's war, this gunning foe, CPS. Kick doors, no warrants, they taking our seeds. Say it's neglect, but they planting they greed. Feds in they pocket, judge got a fee. Run it like a business, adoption spree. Contracts overseas, got partners in France. But shorty from Shy, he ain't get a chance. Mama work 2 jobs, daddy do right, but they still snatch his baby in the middle of the night. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's Suffer Davis popping and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They labeled us monsters, called us unfit, but it's they paperwork dirty, all of it forged and flipped. How the fuck they selling babies to a bidder overseas? Then tell the fam you unworthy. Man, please, we got mamas in pain, daddies in tears. They breaking our hearts, been doing it for years. Now we riding with Gunner, and we got the proof. under oath. Now it's time for truth. Trump got the team and the pen in his hand. He said bring them home. Now that's the plan. You feds been hiding, but it's over now. We moving like an army, and we ain't bowing down. Fuck CPS, they ain't saving shit. Just a system full of snakes getting rich off kids. We see through the cap, we done taken the hit. Now it's off of Davis popping, and we loaded the clip. Gunna got the case, now we in that fight. Taking this to SCOTUS, shining that light. They ruined good homes, now we flipping that script. Time to bring them back, time to empty the clip. They ain't gods, they ain't law, they just people. Corrupt people, and when the people rise, ain't no system safe. The Chi-Town, it's the movement. We gunning for CPS, and we coming heavy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait.
I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical.
Well, who are we going to piss off today? Welcome to another edition of Gunning for CPS. I'm your host, Gunner. Had a little break over the holidays, rested up. Everybody's been fighting a little bit of flu, a little bit of that stuff going around, pneumonia. Guys, stay safe, stay healthy. Make sure that you're getting the proper amount of nutrients and taking care of yourself with exercise and a very good balanced diet. And as you all know, the Food and Drug Administration is now taking that food pyramid and turned it upside down. That's right. The truth has come out. It's not about lobbying. It's now about the science and the truth. And we're getting a lot. You know what I'm saying? A lot of that's coming out lately. A lot of truth. A lot of people opening up to that stuff. To where a lot more, truth, a lot more facts. People are not getting swayed or dismayed. They're doing their due diligence. They're waiting instead of the first piece of evidence or anything else to take and come out. They're waiting for more evidence from more angles. And these cameras thing, listen, guys, this is why we tell you, especially with dealing with CPS or dealing with anything else that you're dealing with these people, the courts, CPS, your caseworker, anything else, law enforcement, everything else, record. I will briefly touch on the thing with Minnesota. As the evidence came out, yes, the officer was hit. The officer had just recovered from being ran over before. Once again, the tires were spinning. In other words, this person not only did that, cut the wheels the other way, but hit the gas so hard, and you'll see in the video, and there's multiple ones, the wheels spin, and thank God the streets were icy and snowy, and that car did not get traction. Otherwise, when the person operating the vehicle gunned it, would have probably done more damage or killed the law enforcement agent that had every right to self-defense. And I know a lot of people then went on to, well, it's about life. It's about, the sanctity of life and all these other things. And these same people that are saying this, and I don't mean this to be harsh, but this is the truth, are the same ones that promote abortions. And, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm all for the sanctity of life and this and that at the same time. I promote, abortions and whatever your perspective is on it. It just comes down to the simple fact of these are the facts. And, regardless of your feelings, this is the way it's going to be. Now, guys, we've got a lot of stuff. We're going to focus a little bit on the state of Tennessee, and there's a lot of parallels with your state if you're from different states, even some other countries of things to look at, so on and so forth. But I wanted to take and start out Well, one, let's make this connection. Let me share this with you. One of the things is the person that was in the car in this incident in Minnesota, the person that ICE was looking to detain, or had in the back that they were looking to get. I see in the back room. Just give me a minute. I want you guys to take a look at this. This is the person that they were trying to stop the vehicle that was in the back, that she was trying to get, that this group was trying to get free, that's cost this woman her life. She's laying down her life for this stuff. Was a Guatemalan citizen that is 2022 of sex crime arrest, 2023 pled guilty. And there's other things going on about trafficking. Look through here. Sex crimes, arrests, pleading guilty. A lot of these other things. 39-year-old person, and a child molester. Now, what is and here's the funny thing. What is the connection with one side that seems to stand up for especially things like CPS, that are wanting to stop the deportation and or arrest of sex offenders against children? Do you see the correlation there between those people? And they all come up, it's the same thing. It's like, you're the same ones that go for the you're protecting child traffickers and child molesters and all, regardless of their alien state. These are criminals. This isn't just, oh, well, you're here illegally. These are criminals, let alone sex crimes against children. And this is who they're siding with. And this is uncalled for. And that's what 90% of these ICE things are for, is not just because, oh, you're not in the country legally. These are criminals that are here illegally. That is a huge difference. But why are you wanting to protect or release those that would harm children? So now we know where they are. And then, there's a lot of other things going into people's pasts. There are a lot of things that have been talked about, where are these other things? And there was a comment, somebody that just really irritated me, going through these clips. And I sometimes, once again, I don't care. I'm not your friend. Your opinion doesn't account to me. A lot of those other things. Run your mouth all you want, but it came down to, standing up for, especially this person that did these things, especially with reviewing all the evidence, to turn around and look at somebody and says, if this woman would have been home with her children, and there's rumors going around that her children were taken from her, and she was putting her children, putting cigarettes out on her children, and they were removed from this woman. This is a justified removal of harming and damaging children. To go through that of saying, she should have been home with her children, but once again, she couldn't because of all these other things that are going on, and I digress. And then their retaliation was well, the same could be said about Charlie Kirk, that, had he had been with his children, and this is how stupid this person and ignorant this person was. If he had been with his children, he wouldn't have got shot. And I'm over here like, hello, his wife and kids were present when he got shot. He was with his family. His family supported him in what he did. Hello. Why would you, and let alone, it shows the ignorance of these people, that it doesn't take that long to turn around and go, you dumb as dog shit. Now, a couple other things, like I said, that comes through, there's been a lot of things going on, and we're going to talk a little bit about Tennessee. I'm going to say one thing that was going on here in Tennessee was, over the past couple of years, the Tennessee Highway Patrol, THP, were giving out DUIs to sober people. As a matter of fact, more information has come out about this, and we got a little clip it here from Fox 17 out of Nashville that did this story, that there's more information now, that even the numbers are greater since TBI has done an investigation, that they were arresting and charging people and ruining people's lives that weren't even drunk or under the influence. I think the number's up to like 417. It'll go through it here. But watch this damn clip and it'll blow your mind.
New data uncovered exclusively by Fox 17 reveals that sober DUI arrests in Tennessee are far higher than previously reported. The TBI now says 2,547 people have been arrested for DUI since 2017, despite then testing negative for alcohol and drugs. That's more than 4 times higher than the 609 arrests that officials originally reported. The increase comes after a new law required more transparency, the TBI says, prompting it to upgrade its tracking system. In 2024 alone, Tennessee had 419 sober DUI arrests, according to that new data. That's the highest in 8 years. The agencies with some of the highest numbers: Tennessee Highway Patrol, Sumner County Sheriff's Office, and Laverne Police. State Senator Ramesh Akbari says she's now working on legislation to curb sober DUI arrests. Tennessee's new legislative session begins next week. If you want to see this full...
Okay, now let's touch on something else, because some new laws went into effect January 1st as well in the state of Tennessee. That now they can do drug testing at the side of the road type thing, some sort of new thing that's going on that gives them even more power to do this thing. And once again, these are Fourth Amendment violations. You got to understand, if you're under the influence or you suggest this, all these other things, you can't arrest somebody. That's not the way it goes. You take them in, and they're supposed to go before a magistrate with enough evidence on whether or not they can be arrested, is the way it's supposed to go, which all law enforcement takes and bypasses that huge thing. And Darren, if you're listening in the back, feel free to jump in on this, because this is constitutional stuff. This is And we'll, this is just huge of how much they do this, as well as they talk about DUI checkpoints, all these other things. Probable cause has to be there. They cannot pull you over for nothing. They can't detain you. And once again, now they're doing drug testing, which requires Fourth Amendment because it's your bodily fluids. They're not even getting a warrant for this from an Article 3 judge. Now, that's the other thing I've dealt with this week. Only an Article 3 judge or an Article 1 judge that has limited power or specific time or limited power by Congress of the United States is the only one that can give that power away. Without those people, in other words, you're a family court judge, can't order shit when it comes to your Fourth Amendment rights, including your papers or anyone secure in your home where you have to surrender the kids and this and that. Get a warrant. Get a warrant to enter the home. That judge does not have the power to what? If you're out in public, yeah, you can snatch them up. But if I'm in my Fourth Amendment protected home, the only person that can sign on the dotted line is an Article 3 judge. Correct, Aaron?
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, the biggest thing that you hit on there is before you go to even the police station, the law states that you go to see a magistrate immediately. Immediately. Not go to the police station and do fingerprints and all of this stuff. You go to a magistrate to find out if there is even just cause for you to be arrested. You can't, these cops are way out of control, man. They just think that they can slap some handcuffs on you and then just detain you. No, you can't just detain a person. And that's what we're seeing a lot of times now in these stops too. They're like, step out of your vehicle, I'm just going to detain you. And they say it's in the name of their own safety. And then of course they're going to make this for this ICE thing go on. Now the ICE thing in the Minnesota thing, that whole thing was a mess all the way around, between what the cops did, between the people in the car, between all of that stuff, granted it was more of a story to it and everything, but that's fine. But still, they're going to take this, each side is going to take that and they're going to use it. And both of them are wrong. Spin it. This cop's running up on this lady's car, trying to pull the fucking door open. What is that? You don't just get to open someone's door. There's
Yeah, there's a lot to it that they're overdoing now. Now, let me explain something, and Darren and I will show our age. They had magistrates and judges
Mhm.
24 hours a day. Remember
Night
the
court.
TV show Night Court?
That's right. Judge Harry.
There was one judge with a whole courtroom at night specifically for just that. And it was portrayed in New York City, but this was mandatory, or you had to wake the judge and everybody else up
Hmm.
to go forward. And they didn't like that. We're inconvenienced. We're getting our beauty sleep. Who gives a shit? It's your fucking job.
Hmm. That's where they make the big bucks.
And once again, the stuff with Night Court, half the stuff is over here. Yeah, whatever, go on here, or but they dealt with it and then they arrested. Why? They brought them in, had Night Court.
This is
Why?
the thing
Because
about
that was the rule.
this is the thing about the judges, Gunners. This is they've made them bankers. They made the bankers hours. You're supposed to be able to have
Yeah.
access to that judge. 9 to you go in there. You get the courtroom 8 to 4. That's it. No, and you don't even. They've made them like a rock star almost. Like you don't get
Oh
to come
yeah.
over here and see this judge. You don't get
I
to
got
do
tea
this.
time. I got tea
Yeah,
time at 10. We got to hurry up.
yeah. It's asinine. These cops, like what they're doing when they're stopping people, that they're sitting there and they're blatantly lying now. They're pulling people over for secondary stop reasons at first
Now,
appearance, but then hiding
I,
that.
I'm I'm glad you brought that up because one of the conversations we've always had, especially with CPS, and we found documentation this in Tennessee, is that for over a decade, Tennessee has given away the rights. The state of Tennessee has given away the rights, and we'll get to your question here in a minute on an affidavit complaint. If you want to just type it out here or something, that's fine too. Or you can reach out to me on my Facebook. If you follow me at Gunning for CPS or Gunner Evers, you can reach out to me there with that question. But since you've brought that up, since Tennessee has given away the rights of every single person or resident in Tennessee to where it says they have a right to enter your home and to question you or your children, and it literally says with your consent or your permission, however that's worded, is not needed. There is no mention of a warrant whatsoever, and since CPS has been handling cases, especially in Tennessee and just about every state, it's we found all of them for all 50. That's where fruit from a poisonous tree comes in.
Well, let me ask
Your
you this,
case
Gunner.
died from the day that they showed up without a fucking warrant and came into your house.
Here's the question: how are you going to get a warrant from an illegitimate judge?
You're not, because
All
they
these
can't get
judges
it.
are
Matter of fact,
administrators. Administrators don't have the
listen,
authorization. So
my wife, you guys know that my wife's been going through things, especially in Kentucky, dealing with the Tennessee overreach, this and that. We're going to cover a lot of that stuff tonight. That's going to blow your mind of all the criminal stuff that went on. But when they turned around and got her in court and says, listen, we want the birth certificates, we want this, we want medical records, we want this and this and that, wrote a motion to turn around and said, those are in my dwelling or my home, and unless you have a warrant from an Article 3 judge, which put the court on notice that she was educated in her submittal for one of her motions, you can kiss my ass because you don't have the power. And I asked her just the other day, I says, hey, have they asked about those papers? He goes, since I turned that in, they haven't even touched it. Why? Because the papers that CPS is asking for, as soon as you say those items are in my home and they are protected documents under the Fourth Amendment, and get a damn warrant, let alone get one from an Article 3 judge. When you articulate, this shit, all of a sudden everybody gets stupid. They know their rights. We can't demand it. Why? Because if they had enough power, the judge would write it on there, get it from here and get it. But if they don't know where to get the stuff, there's the other part. How are you going to do that? Those are protected. That includes persons. If you look at the Fourth Amendment, those are persons as well. So if you keep your kids locked up and they say, well, we're here to take your kids, this and that, and you're at the fucking door, go get a warrant. go get a warrant to come into my house because my kids aren't coming out of this house. Why? They have food, they have a bathroom, and a place to sleep and everything. We are secure in our home. Go get a warrant. You catch us out in public, that's a whole different story. But on my property, which you ever notice how that went smaller and smaller and smaller from large farms, and this included, because that included the easement and the land. My kids could run around this and that, and you had to have a warrant to come on my property to even take my kids or seize my papers or anything. And they flip out once you turn around and go, show me the warrant. And let alone those judges don't even have the power to, listen to me and listen good, the power to even write a court order to obtain those documents.
Right. They're illegitimate.
It's going to be an Article 3 judge. And you have to give a sworn affidavit.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Alicia.
There's a whole bunch of steps. There's a whole bunch of steps that they don't do. CPS doesn't do, and then they just run around like it's kindergarten, and they just whatever they want. Let's just have this person write this up, and
whatever the teacher
and they
says,
do it under an official capacity. It's disgusting.
Yeah. So listen, I found this, and it's actually a guy. He's getting a little bit more popular on things. And let me see if I can find this here. Where'd the other one go? I don't know where the other one went. Maybe. Oh, here it is. This guy's pretty popular. He's a known attorney, but let's watch this video here because he talks about fruit from a poisonous tree. And he has a very good handle on this, but let's watch this.
Fruit of the poisonous tree is a legal concept that says, hey, if the police perform an illegal search and obtain evidence, not only can that evidence not be used, but any evidence that it leads to can't be used. Let's say the police beat you with a phone book. Get a confession. Well, not only can the confession not be used, but the dead body that they found in the house also could not be used. That is fruit of the poisonous tree. But there is something called the inevitable discovery rule. So if it's inevitable that the police would have discovered it anyway, then it can be used. So let's say they beat you with that phone book. You make the confession. They say, hey, we're going to go get this dead body. And at the same time that they're over there searching, getting this dead body, another police department has got a search warrant for the house. Well, somebody could argue fruit of the poisonous tree, it came from the beating of the phone book. But if they already had a warrant and they were going to search it anyway, inevitable discovery. So the inevitable discovery rule saves it, provided the warrant was legal. This concept gets misapplied sometimes. For example, in a DWI setting, if a police officer messes up on the horizontal gaze and nystagmus test, it doesn't mean that fruit of the poisonous tree, everything gets thrown out from here on out. That's not the way it works, because it's not a constitutional violation to mess up on field sobriety. Now, it does mean that the test loses its validity. It does mean that its probative value is outweighed by its prejudicial value, which is why it wouldn't be admissible. But it's only that test that's not admissible. So it's not fruit of the poisonous tree. It is a concept of, hey, we want to make sure that if police are using it, that it is acceptable, scientific, and collected properly. The fruit of the poisonous tree is that there is some kind of constitutional or statutory violation. Different concepts, different uses, gets confusing, but don't be the one to get them confused. Now you know.
So we touched on it right there, guys. Fruit from the poisonous tree applies to constitutional rights violations, such as the Fourth Amendment, the CPS. My whole case started when the CPS worker came into my home and says, I need to come in and this, and that. Matter of fact, there is case law specifically dealing with this federal. Now, write this down if you don't have it. White versus Pierce County. Look it up. because it specifically deals with the CPS caseworker, to where the federal judge says a warrant is mandatory for every, in other words, they can't coerce, they can't intimidate, they have to explain that you fully understood. And here, let's go one farther. When you give up your rights, and here's the thing, that if they trick you, say, well, they told me I could come in, or they told me this and that. You got that waiver form the same way when I waived my rights to an attorney and everything else that is on file? No? Then you're lying your ass off, because that's also mandatory. Gotcha. Now you're lying, because here's the other thing. When it comes to constitutional rights, who do you believe? The state employee or the person? Under the law, both state and federal, you got to believe the person. They're required to document and have that. In other words, if I'm waiving my rights, I have to, one, fully understand how and why I'm waiving my rights. Number two, you have to take and sign them away. It's not a verbal. Verbal doesn't work. That's why that case law says mandatory, you got to have a warrant to enter the home. Mandatory. Now it goes beyond when you go into Doe et al. Versus Heck et al. Yes, like Doe versus Heck, like a deer and then Heck. Goes even further and says that questioning somebody on private property is a form of Fourth Amendment seizure. But I know you're going to turn around and you're going to look at me, but wait a minute, Gunnar, didn't you take and see on a previous show that the state of Tennessee says in their client's right handbook that they have a right to enter your home and to question people, and your permission or your consent is not needed? Yeah, it does say that, and they published it. That means that they've been breaking the law for over a decade, and every single case they've ever handled for over a decade now must be overturned. Kids come home. That is the basis of our major case within that stuff. In our federal case, is saying the state of Tennessee has been operating unconstitutionally to procure children, when every single case should have been thrown out under fruit from a poisonous tree. And here's where it gets even hinkier, because all the people that had court-appointed attorneys or had attorneys and everything else, and they didn't point that out or stand up for that. Looks like your bar association's corrupt as hell, because didn't they swear an oath to the Constitution and to uphold it? That means everybody in that courtroom are now co-conspirators for what? Deprivation of rights under the color of law.
I don't even think that's straight up kidnapping, man.
Exactly. Well, let's start there. Once again, there's the first one. The judge, and here's the other thing, the judges and the magistrates, what's it saying about judges and magistrates that don't know the law or anything else? You can't do that, because they're supposed to be fully competent to sit in that position. Or the fact that if they don't, it's an insult to the law itself. But most people go after this, and they go through these bar things of like JCC's, Board of Accountability and all this other stuff, and file those complaints there. Those are criminal action, guys. They should be going to your state attorney general's office and to the U.S. attorney's office for prosecution. You're filing in the wrong place. You need to file a criminal complaint. And that's what flips everybody else. Now, we got another one. And this guy, we're going to go back to the same guy. You guys, once again, he's got great information. I don't always agree with everything he says. Let's just make that clear. But remember when we were talking back, about a month ago, Darren, or 2 months ago, about the Brady list? And people didn't understand, well, what's that, and all the other things. Well, now he did a special on this to understand, and we're going to watch this video that talks about how a cop can lie and where their limits are. This goes for CPS and everything else, the places they can lie and how they can lie within the context. Does a great, but let's watch this video.
Police lie, cheat, and steal. Now, that is what we hear on social media apps all the time, and it is what I hear in my office. Potential new clients come in and they say, the police lie. Well, sometimes they do. And the U.S. Supreme Court has said that police can lie in order to further an investigation. But that is a lie like looking at a defendant and saying, hey, your buddies already came clean. You might as well come clean too. When the buddies, in fact, had not come clean. Or when they say, we got you on video. You might as well tell us your side of the story while you were there. When they, in fact, don't have you on video. But that is not the same as when they're in court or when they're writing out an affidavit, giving a sworn statement. In those circumstances, the Supreme Court has not allowed them to lie. And in fact, if they do lie, they're likely to end up on something called a Brady list. Now, a Brady list is a list that is put together of officers that have been untruthful, and that list must be turned over to defense attorneys so that they can use it either in the case in chief when it comes to determining guilt and innocence or in mitigation. But if an officer lies during the course of a trial or to get an affidavit or an internal affairs investigation, then they have some very severe consequences. Police lie, cheat, and steal. Now that is what we hear on social media apps all the time, and it is what I hear in my office.
Okay. Let me address this thing with Erica real quick, because she's come up and saying, listen, a judge has issued a court order that I have to let CPS in my home and do things within the home of so on and so forth. One, check and make sure with the state as well as with the county courthouse what article that judge is. Now, if that judge is not in Article 3, which I have yet to see a family court judge be an Article 3 judge. There's usually like Article 4 or 6 or whatever, or they call them divisions depending on your state or whatever else. That judge does not have the authority to allow anyone in your house. You take that court order, that is your evidence, and you go file a criminal complaint against that judge, criminal charges that they are abusing their power and position, and you put in there, only an Article 3 judge has the power to do anything with a Fourth Amendment protected thing. And it has and requires a warrant for entry each time with very specific instructions. In other words, it's narrow. You just can't go in to do this and that. And you've taken, then you do a change of change of jurisdiction or change of venue on that judge, because that judge has now violated their oath. And once again, you file that judge does not have the power. When it is put on notice to the Attorney General's office, everything else, now that judge is in trouble. Why? You've overstepped your bounds. That power has not been delegated to you by the people. Judges and magistrates, just because they're in a courthouse, doesn't mean they have all the same powers. A state judge doesn't have the power to even hear a constitutional case. Only the federal court has the power to hear constitutional issues. Now, I would also, and once again, this is not legal advice, this is if it were me, I would file a 1983 case under constitutional question and get a change of venue to the constitutional court due to the fact of that was the issue. And right there's your evidence, 100%. Judge does not have the power. The judge is going to come back from the federal court and turn around and slap him on the wrist. And then I would file for sanctions on that judge. Why? They're not delegated that power. And when they assume that, or they bully you into it, thinking you're ignorant of your rights or you don't know, just because you're a judge or magistrate doesn't mean you have absolute power. Matter of fact, you're limited. You have a job description and you can't step past certain things. This is why a lot of corrupt family court judges, and we're going to deal with something else here, and I'm going to show this to you. In Tennessee, one of the favorite things to do, and I know Darren's talked about this too, of going on in other states and even in Maine, but we went back and we looked and said, well, listen, I went into family court then it moved up to civil court. And they turn around, and when you got done with court, you had a criminal conviction. In other words, it was a criminal code. And then the excuse they gave was, well, we can have criminal code in civil court, but once again, no jury. But, oh, you're going to love this one. Oh, you're going to love this one, guys. Let's take a look at something together. And Darren, you're going to love this one too. You're going to get a kick out of this.
All right.
See this, guys? I got to switch back and forth between screens.
Mm-hmm.
This is a copy of the Tennessee Constitution. Now, this is Article 1, which is right here, the Declaration of Rights. And let me see if I can zoom into where you guys can see this better. Can you see that better now, Darren? Does that work better?
No, not really, but no.
Okay.
No, you can't.
I can see it on my screen. I don't know if you guys can.
Well, that's
it
good. You can
bigger
see it.
on mine.
You're going to have to tell us what it says.
So Article 1 under this is your rights. This is now your state constitution generally mimics the same structure of the U.S. Constitution, okay? You're going to have the same section, Declaration of Rights, you'll go down. Section 1, Declaration of Rights, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, and it gives a description, and goes through all these different sections that are here. Under Article 1, now let's go back up here. This is Article 1, Declaration. Let's go to Section 14 of the Tennessee Constitution. What's this say? What's that say?
We can't see it.
That no person, let me see if I can, let me zoom this up and see if it won't clear up a little bit here.
There you go.
Right there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 14. And guys, I'm going to minimize, give me a second here and I'm going to get the chat. Let me, I'm going to minimize the chat just for a second, guys, and then we can go on. And this is Blount County, Tennessee. This is the mass corruption that went both before the magistrate and the judge, that they put a criminal charge on me with no jury. And, no, I couldn't cross-examine any of the, there's multiple things that specific in my case that's dirty. But they violated the Tennessee Constitution, Section 14. Then what does this say? That no person shall be put to answer for not some, any criminal charge. In other words, a criminal code, but by presentment, indictment, or impeachment. I was never indicted or impeached. Or once again, presentment. It was never done.
What does presentment?
Which also means, huh?
What does presentment mean? Do you know?
I looked it up. I'm a little fuzzy. Go ahead with it. You got it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay.
Presentment means.
Would that be Black's Law Dictionary?
Yeah, I'm going to do the online version, but let's see what it says. It says, well, even this is thinking about it. Presentment is a formal written accusation issued by a grand jury on its own initiative without a prosecutor's involvement.
Oh, you mean a grand jury? Oh, that's right, grand jury.
But not even brought, that means the grand jury figured it out themselves.
Yeah, without influence.
Right.
Just on the presentment of evidence. So, wait a minute. You're telling me that I went through family court and civil court, and both the magistrate and judge found me guilty without any cross-examination, not allowing it specifically, meeting section 24-7-123 and violating not only that, the rules of evidence, but no cross-examination, no jury, but now has violated the state of Tennessee's Constitution. That's right. Many of you know Jessica Saxton. We had the same magistrate and judge. She's out of Blount County, Tennessee. That means both magistrate Bedingfield and Harrington, I think it's Diane or something, Harrington, has violated not only her oath, but has violated the state's constitution. That's beyond an impeachable offense, guys. That's an arrestable offense. Ouch. So those of you I know that are from Blount County, because I do see a few of you here that are watching this stuff, this is the mass corruption that you're wanting and you're talking about, where we come with receipts and we have the evidence. Why? Because it's on the court record and you can't take it back and you can't change it. It's on file. When you filed those paperworks and you filed them under those criminal codes, you have now just committed a felony, because it's a massive due process violation. And I'm over here like, and when you find out, listen, and this is what we're talking about when you argue those things. And this is one of the things that we deal with, especially when we filed our actual appeal. All of this was brought up in the appeal. And, most of the times, Darren, when the appeals go through, usually that goes through what? The appellate court, right?
Correct.
Well, our particular appeal didn't go to the appellate court. Our appeal went to the Attorney General's office.
Uh-oh.
Those were serious crimes.
Uh-oh.
So those that are reviewing the case to overturn my case and everything and the destruction of my family and every hell that they've put me through is now with the Tennessee Attorney General's office, that they have violated, and they're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to say, you're corrupt, you're a criminal, and you have done this. And why did they, now, once again, why did they go after me? Because I figured out from the very beginning and understood, fruit from a poisonous tree, that when that corrupt CPS agent, Jeremy Crenshaw, broke into my home with no warrant, no court order, and no permission, he violated my constitutional fruit from the poisonous tree applied to my case. And I screamed about it from every hearing. This should be dismissed. This is fruit from a poisonous tree. And you know what they did? They just didn't care. And that's what they wanted, the money. They wanted to ruin somebody's name. They wanted to discredit me. So I would say, well, we're not going to listen to him. Of course, it's okay if we violate their rights. Why? They're criminals. But wait a minute. You're the criminals because you violated the state's constitution. I'm not even supposed to be in here, let alone have that type of thing. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing even, on you, because that violates the state's constitution. Now, what are you going to do? Because now you've been caught. Now you're the one that's in trouble. Now everybody else that's involved in this, and let me tell you how you word this, especially in your 1983 cases, when you go to sue them in their official capacity. Guys, remember, in your 1983 cases, it's only in their official capacity. Mm-hmm. In their personal capacity is where you go to another court called the Court of Claims. That's where you go after their license, you go after their insurance, you go after their personal assets. Everything. You make it to where they can never work again. You sue them so bad in the Court of Claims. The other is covered under insurance, under the state and the county and everything else. Got them so bad. They are now, you list them, and this is how you put this for everybody that's been involved after that. From CPS to the court workers to the court clerk to everybody else all the way down. They are now co-conspirators. And now you got them, because now, and it's not hard to prove. Why? All these people work together to what? Ruin my life and violate my rights. Why? Because it should have been dead from the get-go. Therefore, everything after it that they done to me, your family, your kids, and everything is now not only a civil, can be sued civilly, but these are criminal actions. Guys, so remember, when you're doing your CPS stuff, point out the criminal stuff, but keep it clean, just like you would file and in a format of this person did this. This is the state code or the state constitution thing that they violated. Make sure you keep it state, okay, when you're dealing with state stuff or when you're filing your appeals. Some of the federal stuff's a little bit better, but if you can get them on the state stuff, now you hammer them. But if you look at the way that was worded, it said all criminal must go through this. What does that mean? And I've heard about several cases across Tennessee of saying, A matter of fact, Darren knows also there's several cases in Maine. Same damn thing. So go look up your state's constitution and write against it. Why? Because there's no statute of limitation on constitutional rights. I can now still press charges against them and hold them accountable, even if my case is 2-year-old, 5-year-old, anything else, and I can still go after you criminally because there's no statute of limitations. But you word that in there so they know exactly you understand your rights and you have articulated it on paper. Now, we got another one, and let's go through this. And now with CPS, we've noticed they've used manipulation, control, and several other things. Well, there was a study done here of how they controlled the children. And and this is something I've noticed too, when they go to these CAC centers or they go to, you know what I'm saying? Or your kids are doing this, your kids are doing that, or they're with CPS. You ever notice they buy them like the McDonald's, the Burger King, the fast food and everything else? Okay, guys, watch this. This is going to blow your mind.
It's one study, Tucker, where they took
That is true.
kids in juvenile detention centers and they gave them healthy food, swapped it out for the junk food. 97% reduction in behavioral issues and violence, 75% reduction in restraints, and 100% reduction in suicides, which is the third leading cause of death in teenage boys. This is documented science. This is not stuff I'm making up. And I wrote it in my book, Food Fix, which is really how to save our health, our economy, our communities, and our planet one bite at a time. I mean, there was one study, Tucker, where they took
That is true.
kids in juvenile detention.
So they're using food as a weapon against our children. They know this stuff. They know about these studies. Here, have a candy bar. Here, have the, a ho-ho, a cupcake, all this other junk food, this, that. Let me stuff you full of sugars. Kid's going to be
keep your
more
body
compliant
burning up.
then.
Yeah, keeps your body burning and getting you just
The mind fog. So now the child is, now listen, this is where the manipulation comes in. This is where the mind fog comes in. They are now more susceptible to mind control. Do you know where they learn this also? Ever heard of MK Ultra? That's where that study first originated. Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, guys. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. It was declassified. They have used that research on manipulation and controlling of the masses for everything from food to LSD to fluoride to all those different chemicals to what? Make you more susceptible to being controlled. And they've done it in this country. Even all the way to now they've reversed the food pyramid. That was propaganda and lobbyists and everything else for big companies to make money. But it wasn't good for the people. It was a lie. We are peeling back the onion, guys, every single day. And you just turn on the news, just turn on something. You may get bits and pieces of it, but now it's coming for this was found out.
Do you know how MK Ultra even came about?
It was a research that was done. It was an Air Force base, actually.
Well,
that it was
do you
done
know it started with the Nazis, and they were doing it. They were Joseph Mengele, I believe, was one of the players in that, but they were doing it on
Project Paperclip.
The subject, the prisoners at Auschwitz. They were doing all these mind control works on them, and then we carried that over when the end of the war happened. Yeah,
we brought their scientists over here during Project Paperclip.
Is that
a lot
of
that stuff they wanted. Yeah, Project Paperclip. And that was an Air Force base that has now been, it was decommissioned. Excuse me. It was sold off to one private owner. Go do the research on this, and it 100% fact. Sold to one developer, which then took over the Air Force base and built houses over certain sections and collapsed certain parts of the underground airport service tunnels. And do you know what that area that it used to occupy is now called today? Hollywood Hills.
No kidding.
So those tunnels they were talking about in California between the Playboy Mansion and all
Mm-hmm.
these other things and the P Diddy and all that other stuff, those are old airstrip service tunnels, is what they
No
are.
kidding.
They didn't collapse them all and backfill them because it was too costly, but it was structurally sound to build on.
No kidding. Wow, that's some
Yeah.
interesting stuff.
Go down that. I went down that rabbit hole, like I said, with the MK, and all of that was declassified. And you go down that thing with that Air Force base, who it was sold to, and there's a dark thing. And here's the other part. Some of the people that came out of that, which makes you wonder from that area, but and they just and when that was decommissioned, that was all getting done and closed down. You know what they did with the people they experimented on? They just let them loose.
Oh my.
Do you know who one of them was? And several others?
Oh my, who?
Charles Manson.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Charles Manson, he ever listened to that man about how things were corrupt and all this other things? He was part of the MK. They experimented on him and he called it out. He knew everything that was going on. And he was like, hey, we're just going to do this and we're going to go about this with love and this and all. He had that whole thing, and then people twisted a bunch of other things on. And then, oh, well, people have killed for you. No, man, the experiment was working. Why? Take a look at what they're doing to the children today and the people that are doing mass shootings and school shootings and everything else. You ever notice, and they won't tell you this, and you dig around, but you find out a few things. What were the medications they were on? Who was the treating physician? You realize there's a lot in common in there, or they're all in that same circle? Other things that went on in California, I mean, several of those, killings and this and that, and some of the screwed up things that were going on. I mean, there was a reason that the Church of Satan was found in Hollywood Hills.
Mm-hmm.
The Hotel California song and everything else that, was talked about that went through all that stuff. And Anton LaVey and how many of those other things, and how it still goes on today with other things, with other people as it's progressed through time. But these are all connected, but they hid all this stuff from us. And they, like I said, they did several things. They had people tripping like crazy on LSD. How much LSD can I take to do this? And then show you movies, flash control and this. And everybody's like, well, that stuff don't. You ever watch? I mean, they base these movies off true facts. You ever watch Jason Bourne?
Yeah.
How do you think they broke his mind? MK Ultra. It was a success of the program to what? Create a super soldier. There was multiple uses for this. They could control people. You send somebody in, you program them this, that, and put them in there, and they're like a ticking time bomb. Give them 5 years or this or that, and something will activate or turn them on, and all of a sudden, because and people say, well, I don't understand. There was very little there, and then the same thing are said about these mass shooters and this and that. Well, what are they getting involved in? Trans stuff, getting involved in, all the stuff of this radical left-wing stuff, this brainwashing stuff that all of a sudden just turns around, and all of a sudden something snaps in them, and all of a sudden something that brings the pleasure part of their brain says, I need to kill a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
A normal child, even with mass traumas, that is the last thing they think about, is becoming a mass murderer. And you even have people that are on these medications, such as Xanax or several other of those mind-altering drugs, that people will turn around and go, I'm not kidding you. There's people that have told me this. They say, I'm taking that or Valium or this, and you go, do you realize how easy it is to lie now? Excuse me? No, it's like I feel no guilt, no remorse, and I know I'm lying, but I don't feel bad about it. And it's just so natural. I'm like, Do what? Oh yeah, I've lied to this and this and that and all that, and it's just so easy. And it shuts off the part of the brain for cognitive thinking of right and wrong. Now think about that. You do that with some other programming, and they're on certain websites, or they're doing it, and that's programming. And that's crazy. Yeah, and there's a spiritual side to it also, John. I'll agree with you. Um, uh, that deals with the human nature and with the energy. I mean, they're manipulating the frequencies and the energies of the mind and the body. Uh, that is just absolute crazy. Now you go through and just one last thing here. We're coming up on wrapping up the show here. We're about at the hour mark. Let me show you something else here that's going on now here in Tennessee. And once again, this is focused on because I've been doing a lot of research here for Tennessee and just keeping up with some of the new laws and everything else. They are asking for more money. Once again, Margie Quinn, which is the head director of the state of Tennessee, has gone to the subcommittee and says, "Hey, we need more money because we don't have this. We're overworked to that." No, you don't need no more money. Matter of fact, they had several people that are on that subcommittee that she goes to for money of saying, "Well, what about the mass corruption, or what about this, or what about all these other things that are going on where these kids are not supposed to be in an office with a bed in a tote, as you're seeing in this picture. The kids are sleeping in the offices rather than in homes." You talk about breaking somebody and institutionalizing a child that nothing has happened other than stealing them from their parents. And here, let me institutionalize you. Why? This is a bed. This is where they're staying. This is an actual picture of Hamilton County, Tennessee, pictures from inside the Department of Children's Services office. This is the child. This is what the child is sleeping on. This is their little tote with some of their stuff and coloring paper and a couple of their books and stuff to go back and forth to school, and some of their clothes in this little itty bitty suitcase after they've been stolen from their parents. Going into an office, you see the office chair in the back where the caseworker's there. Here's just sleep next to the caseworker. Do you see? And now let's get into something here. As once again, I'm a licensed master electrician. Do you see the electrical right next to this child's bed? Do you know that is a huge NEC violation and NFPA violation, National Fire Protection Act? It's plugged in and hanging right there on the bed. They're not supposed to be, those are supposed to have, if you hide a plug behind a bed, you're supposed to put plastic inserts in there so there's no spark or arc coming out of those. This child there could be an electrical fire, burn this child, burn up this bed, and cause massive damage to the child and the facility from just a surge, a lightning storm. That's how serious it is. Now let's look at this. Look at here. Look, there's a whole cubicle full of rollaway beds for children in their office. Not an institution, not a foster home, not nothing, even though I'd love to see the paperwork on that and whether or not they're filing for that foster or that Title IV and keeping them in that office, because that's fraud. Oh, they're in a foster home. No, they're not. They're sleeping in the office. Now listen, and here's the other thing. If a child's involved in that and staying in an office, or say they're younger and they're not going to school, can you imagine the things they hear in that CPS office of all the caseworkers, or something they may read? And then they're worried about parents exposing them to this and this and that. What are pictures laying around or this and that on a really bad case or something, and that child is exposed to that? Isn't that putting a child in harm's way? See, there she is, Margie Quinn. She announced in 2023, Margie Quinn, the director of CPS Tennessee, children are no longer sleeping in DCS offices except Shelby County. She lied to the state of Tennessee. Lied when she went before the subcommittee and says, this is not happening anymore. No. Once again, this is disgusting. Look at this. Air mattress. In Texas, that's an air mattress. There's their bedding for the night that a child has been stolen from their home. And this is what the child has to look forward to, is a cubicle with an air mattress and a few things here and there every night to blow it up and take it down. That's child abuse, folks, away from their parents. This is institutionalization. This is no different than these little cubicles and anything else. This is like putting somebody in the hole. Here's your little cubicle. Stay in your cubicle. And they're supposed to be doing this stuff in the child's best interest. There's no nurturing. There's no caring. There's nothing about the psychological well-being of a child being in that kind of environment. I mean, come on, guys. Look. Let alone if they don't spray the offices or anything else, and there's roaches or this or that crawling around, or mice that are in these offices, if they don't take care of them. And you know what I'm saying? The carpet and everything looks nice. Listen, man, I've been into commercial buildings in and out all my life. And just because the place is a polished turd and it looks good on the outside, I've got, once again, people that even work in offices, or even that are business owners that are, pest control, that there's all sorts of bugs and mice and roaches and everything else running around all this stuff, because then people are nasty as hell in those offices, especially in their food areas. They're disgusting. And imagine now these kids come in and they just go buy a bucket of something, or a cheeseburger or a hamburger, and just throw it at the kids. And then the garbage, the food garbage, and this and that and everything else. That is what those kids are going into. That's disgusting. And to be honest, after it's over and everything else we've got evidence on and everything else, yes, 100% will we be pushing for military tribunals for everyone involved. And we will be pushing for the execution of everybody involved under treason. Yes, it's not a joke. Especially when it comes to Harrington and Bedingfield that have violated their oath. Because here's the thing. And once again, you're saying, well, Gunnar, you're promoting, this and that. No. Under the Constitution, it specifically says if a judge violates their oath and causes harm. Matter of fact, it's even clearer than that. It says they should be taken out to the beginning of the town and strung up. But once again, military tribunal, they're found guilty, and yes, we will push that they pay the ultimate penalty for what they did, not to our family once the investigation's over and everything else. They're going to be hit with multiple crimes because there's a pattern, and they're going to find the pattern, and they're going to tear this thing down. That's the only way. This is why, and listen, guys, reform doesn't work. If you don't believe me, reform doesn't work. Go down the rabbit hole of the state of Arizona. Arizona completely suspended their CPS, terminated everything, restructured it, reformed it, did all these other things to it. And you know where Arizona's at now? Back in the same spot. And the same people that were doing it before got hired back, and the same shit. There is no reform to CPS. Abolishment is the only way.
That's it.
100%.
Amen.
Now, everybody says, oh, well, what about the children? What about the children? If there's truly a child abuse case with evidence and everything, and it meets the criteria, it is a criminal charge and must meet the criminal standard, and thus must be handled by your constitutionally elected sheriff. The fact that the state, here's the other part, guys, that's really bad. The fact that the state has taken away the powers of a constitutionally elected sheriff and their deputies to investigate and lead these crimes and do everything else, that they have turned it over to CPS to do these things, has interfered with a duly elected. In other words, the state has appointed agents and actors to take over powers that we, the people, have delegated to an elected official. That is an act of treason. The state does not have the power to put something in when we, the people, elect somebody to do something. That's their job. Bottom line. And when they take over and interfere with the sheriff, or they muddle the things and everything else up, here's going to be the other problem. How many cases that were criminal? And once again, this is not my fault. You're saying, oh, you're going to let all these people. I'm not. But the law will, because they didn't follow it. How many of those cases, even in criminal cases, where CPS got involved first, like it has been in doing the investigation, and they violated the Fourth Amendment and came into somebody's house to do that? Fruit from a poisonous tree. Once again, the criminal judge, you should have picked up on it. Why? Because the first government agent that started the investigation committed a constitutional rights violation, and he went through it in the video. There's no, well, we would have eventually found it. No, you wouldn't have, because there's the problem. But once again, this is why those things are in there, and this is why we hold law enforcement and the courts and everything else, we the people used to hold them to such a high standard, because when they screwed up, they let criminals free. But they've lowered the standard for themselves so they can get away with not doing their job that they're paid to do. A question for Pennsylvania Constitution number 26. No discriminating against any person in the exercise of your civil rights. That would apply. Yes, that would apply. So if you told somebody you've got documented proof, this is why we tell you videotape it, video. If they go to come in and they don't have a warrant or a court order and they barge through and you protest against that, you can't come into my home, you don't have a warrant. Absolutely. And then they actually penalize you for doing it or not letting them. Now that happened in the Kentucky case, to where when they crossed state lines and everything else, to where Kentucky actually came to her dad's home and said, hey, we want to come in the house, but had no warrant. And once again, how did they punish her? They brought her into court with no probable cause. Now, let's deal with one other thing and we'll wrap this up. You're going to love this, guys. Have you guys ever heard of, let me find it here. Why is it going crazy? You guys ever heard of something called the
Uh-oh. Gunner done got stuck. There he is over there, stuck up. That was really weird, though, huh?
AEA?
There you go.
Darren, you familiar with
Gunner, you're going to have to start over, buddy. You got stuck. You just got stuck, bud. He is frozen up, people. Here he comes. He's back. There you go.
every time, guys? Every time we get into something
Best
they
moment
don't
of
like
the,
us
you're
to
gonna be
talk
the best
about.
moment of the show right there.
Yep.
You know,
The UCCJEA.
yeah, United.
When
the
you
commercial code,
cross, if
juvenile
the
enforcement
rule is this:
jurisdiction.
if you go from one state to
Mhm.
another state, it is required by law before the new state you're in that you're not in, that the case wasn't held. For example, in other words, if you had a case in Tennessee and then it was over in Kentucky, the very first thing they must have is the filing of that form giving permission from the original state to the other state to change the jurisdiction and or continue the case for whatever reason it may be. When they don't have that document first, it's required to have it first, you're in deep shit. Because you know who that goes through? Each of the state's attorney general's office. One state has to give permission for you to take over the case. If that is not found, the other state just broke the law. It gets even better, especially with what we have going on. Yeah, they also got to have, see, with juvenile cases, you got to have a judge sign off to unseal them, to share them by law. Did that happen in the case? Guess what?
Hmm.
Big no number two. There is no judge. Why? Because all those things, when that case moves, it's supposed to be put on file is the USC JEA form with the permission to do it. And if they bring up anything in the case, they have to have the judge's signature giving permission to unseal and share the case. When CPS doesn't go through those channels, that is a criminal act. And right there is our favorite word, RICO.
Here it is.
Wire fraud. The whole shebang. And when you get them, all of a sudden they're going to go, they understand what they're talking about. And if you don't have it, it's an immediate dismissal. You turn that into the Attorney General's office. Hey, there's no form on here, and you notify everybody in through here and you say, where's this form? If that form doesn't exist, and on top of it, you don't have a judge's signature from the original state signing off to unseal anything, and yet the other state has all the information, that's a criminal act.
Mm-hmm.
That's a felony. What's it, 25 years, Darren, I think? 25 years?
I think at least, yeah. At least.
So now they're caught because now you've affected, and this is why it's so critical, and you have to notify the right people. Because it's a criminal act, you have now affected one state's sovereignty over another state's sovereignty. And here's the other thing with that particular code. I'll find it in here in just a second. Courts have held that jurisdiction cannot be presumed or implied, and that orders entered without a UCC JEA compliance are void ab initio. C. Rosen versus Calabrese gives the case number. Friedman versus the 8th Judicial District Court. And Inri of Marriage of Medellin. And it's also a federal due process protected. In other words, the Fed oversees this stuff to make sure whether or not it's been done properly. The custody determinations made without a lawful jurisdiction. Santosky versus Kramer. So you've got case law out the butt. Well, guess who takes and has now I'm gonna quiz you here, Darren, on this. Who has jurisdiction on this then? We'll give Tennessee, Kentucky. Who has jurisdiction, Kentucky or Tennessee, on this?
Well, the UCC JEA says it's wherever the children left their heads for the last 6 months solid, or for 6 months solid. That's where the jurisdiction is supposed to lie, right?
But the feds have jurisdiction when that USCC JEA is not there. The determination doesn't go between the states because it's about state sovereignty. You got to make sure you file with the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney General's office because they have original jurisdiction when it comes to disputes between cases. Once again, going back, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2. All matters in which the state is a party or both states are involved in this particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. They can't even adjudicate on to claim anything when that is missing. So it's automatically a federal crime. It's no longer a state thing. That means your states, everybody involved in this that has done all this stuff, it's not just state crime, boys and girls. It's a federal crime.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have to do what? Press criminal charges because it lacks being in there. And here's the rule of thumb. That UCC JEA must be done first before they do a knock on the door, before they do anything. So when they come back and they say, well, make sure that Tennessee CPS, is giving us permission to do this. Tennessee CPS does not have the authority, nor does any state CPS have the authority to unseal those documents or change the jurisdiction. They can't even talk about the case, anything about the case or anything that was said. And when it's used against you because of that, that is now a felony for everyone involved, from the judge in the new state to the CPS workers, to the investigators, to the case workers, to the guardian ad litems, are all now co-conspirators in a federal crime, including the state that did the origination. Yes, in Tennessee, parties unknown, which will then be investigated and then will be arrested. Because you start messing with the state sovereignty, here's the other thing. It's a federal crime, but now Kentucky, for example, in this case, will say, can now press charges against residents in Tennessee for sharing the information. But now Tennessee can also press charges against everybody in Kentucky for receiving and using the information. Uh-oh. Criminal acts all the way around. But it's not going to get anything done by filing these complaints with, the JCC or the Board of Accountability and all that other stuff. Why? Because it's garbage. It's a criminal acts get taken and done at the Attorney General's office, either for the state or the U.S. Attorney, filed appropriately. File the complaint clearly. They will tell you now, calling in or doing any other crap or anything like that. No, they want a full detailed description with anything you can do and help with them. In other words, quoting codes, case law, all those things to support your side. Let's put it this way. If you can give them enough that they can take it straight to a grand jury, remember that thing about presentment we talked about, to a grand jury, they'll indict them. And failure to investigate a crime is also criminal. So hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. And the only way you do it is make your arguments, guys, as we take and wrap everything else up. Guys, make sure that you know your rights. Make sure you get educated on these policies, procedures, anything you can, even your own state's constitution that you can point out, and have those in front of you. And yes, Jennifer, the judge's bench book, the what is that? The rules of civil procedure, rules of criminal procedure, all those things go through and just pick them apart. Because here's the thing. Nobody knows your case, but you got to understand, better than you do. Okay. But until you understand what crimes were perpetrated on you, you can't clearly articulate that in your writings of your filings, whether it's criminal, whether it's in civil court, whether it's in the court of claims. These are the things you have to keep in there. And you've got to keep this stuff tight. Okay. You have to articulate, you have to back it up with evidence. Okay. The more hard evidence you have, and this is how your cases get farther faster, because you've already done the legwork. Why? Because these bastards are lazy as fuck. And I'm not wrong. When you show up with a criminal act and you've laid everything out for them, here's the person, here's the crime, here's the approximate date, here's the evidence, here's this, here's that. That's enough to take to a grand jury in itself. Then it comes down to the investigative part. All they have to do is double check what you've already found. And if they happen to find something along the way to make the case even stronger, then they'll go ahead and do it. But you guys, you got to file, you've got to complain, you've got to do the things in the right manner and in the right structure, which is something we try to teach you guys about on everything to do with CPS Breaking News Network. is the right way, the things to go through and give you the education and the knowledge. But once again, we're not going to do it for you. There's the other thing that most of anything else, we're not going to do it for you. And then, we've got this new AI and this new app that you can put all this stuff in here and assist you or aid you to have a better understanding of this stuff, of saying, what did I miss? Because most of you, as we're going through this, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize from a poisonous tree would apply to my case. And that's enough to, and once again, then you have to look for the little loopholes and everything else, where you file your appeals, because some of them, they'll say, hey, you've got 30 days to appeal. New evidence. You got to file it under, a certain rule or this or that. Hey, this applies, or this, or a constitutional rights violation that you weren't aware of at the time. Hey, this is something new to us. And yeah, calling supervisors and internal affairs and all that. Let me tell you something, guys. It's really a waste of time. And it's meant to, let's put it this way. Those things are meant to be there because they're all internal. They're double checking themselves. It's meant to make you waste time and to spin your wheels and get you caught up and do cover-ups and everything else. It's not there to benefit you. It's there to help them cover up before, especially with very bad crimes. You know what I'm saying? It gives them a chance to, well, we dealt with it. We did an internal investigation and we didn't find anything, or blah, 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 or we're going to stick to the thin blue line bullshit, or all that other stuff that they try to do. No. You go to their boss. You go to the head and you listen. That's why you start at the Attorney General's office with your criminal complaints. Why? Because, and here's the reason why. Because that old saying, shit rolls downhill. Oh, trust me, the Attorney General is not going to take that good. Why? Because the way the Attorney General looks at a lot of things is criminal is one, but two is, how much is this going to cost us, the state? Because if the scales go for, especially these judges and everything else, if the cost is too high for the judge, where we're not making money out of that court, we now need to dump that judge and get somebody else in there to get our money keep going. You see, that's the balance. That's how they look at it. And you have to go at it, like I said, the right way. You have to use the keywords, this and that. You got to keep your emotions about it. You have to be legal. Legal has no emotion. There's punitive damage for how you felt or the things you incurred. But when it comes down to the law, there's nothing. And then, like I said, the other thing is get your story out. That's going to be the biggest thing. If you can hit news channels, you can do this and that, and your case is that bad, and you start hitting these media, they have no choice, because now they're on blast. And they don't listen, they're like cockroaches. They don't like it when the lights come on. Do they? I mean, they run like crazy and they start circling the wagons. And when you get them that bad, like what we have in their case, there's nothing they can do, and they're scared crapless. And more than one person here, especially in Blount County, Tennessee, and Jessica Saxton, with whatever they've been doing, has put that magistrate and judge on blast on top of it. It gets serious, guys, because now there's a lot of attention, and that's what you don't want. Brandy, good job. Good that you got your charges were dismissed and expunged. Yeah, I mean, you've got to chase after this thing the right way. But here's the other thing. Lawyers are just absolutely fucking worthless when it comes to this stuff. I've searched across this nation for somebody to try and take on my case. Found one and stabbed me in the back. 100%. Till we went down the road, and like I said, and worked through many different people. If you go through the history, we've worked with several different advocates, several different things, and they got us so far, but they couldn't do anything. But the beauty of, like I said, especially with this app coming out, is it levels the playing field, because now you can do so much. And you can, and it searches all over. Where this thing pulls from, especially when we were going, and like I said, I had some input on it as it was developing. Hey, make sure it pulls from here. Hey, make sure it pulls from here. Hey, let's look for these. Especially things like MOUs and this, that. Why? Because that shows they're all working together. It can pull up the MOUs and some of the other things in here. What do you mean? There's a contract that says they're supposed to talk to each other. They're not legally supposed to talk to each other. They're supposed to be independent agencies. I mean, there's so much corruption on this, and this is where we're having to go through. And this is why we've been pushing so hard. And I think we need to go back to the point of we need to end this. We need to end all these things for these states and go back to the Constitution. Why? Because the states were never meant to interact with citizens. They were meant to interact with businesses only. That's it. And then they monetize and everything else out of, divorce court. Hell, they make a ton of money out of divorce court. Why? Because they blow smoke up everybody's butt of how great it is and how the other side of the grass is greener. I always like to say it. My grandfather used to say, he said, if the grass is greener on the other side, that's because there's more shit over there. Because that's what they fertilize the grass with. He says, but don't always judge it, on what it is. He says, because here's the thing, work your area, stick it out. And that's it. But once again, we've lost something in this country called honor, integrity, and respect that we used to have in this country as individuals, as a whole. And it shows. And it's shown in our communities. It's shown in our schools. I mean, the worst place you could take and put your kids now is in public school, because that's a predator's playground. And these county officials and everything else, if you know anything about Blount County, man, you got the judges and the police and the sheriff's office, everything else covering up, and even more evidence is coming out in that Brad Dalton case that we told you about, where that teacher was touching kids for like almost 100 kids for over almost 20 years. And got off on 6 months probation. A former magistrate that helped her son destroy evidence in a federal case of child pornography. I mean, and now they're finding out they hid more evidence in the Dalton case that's now coming out that they buried for a certain reason. All sorts of corruption, man, that this stuff's just got to stop. And the people are going to have to take this back. And we can't allow this stuff anymore. And once again, it's up to us, the people. Listen, the Declaration of Independence is very clear. That's where we get our freedoms, not the Constitution, but the Declaration of Independence. Is that when we find a tyrannical government or one that's not operating what it is, we have a right and a responsibility to abolish those institutions and governments and to set up a new one. And when we set up the new one, we're passing things or implementing things to make sure what just happened that we abolished never happens again. But once again, we've seen the correlation between one particular side that supports CPS, like I said, with this thing that in Minnesota, this and that they're protecting pedophiles and they're wanting them free and they're wanting them to harm children. And that's not, and they're not the majority. There's the other problem. So when the majority gets their voice together and says, we will not tolerate this. I mean, now I've even heard stories of where, even the left is saying with everything that's going on, hey, now we're going to start getting guns and shooting people. Now there's also talk of, some of the ICE and the other things coming out and using subcontractors in these areas, especially for ICE agents, and just putting bounties on their head. And using civilian contractors, or what used to be called mercenaries. Then you ain't going to deal with the police. You're going to deal with the mercenary. Mercenary is a private citizen and doesn't have to follow all those things. So that protection that's there would be gone. And then it would come down to, excuse me, a little drying on fighting this. Now you're looking at a private citizen coming in and doing this or that works for a company. And the most you could do is file against the company for a civil violation, but you can't do it against the government agent. Why? Because they're an independent contractor. They're going after a bounty. They're bounty hunters. Same as going after prisoners and everything else. Do you see what they do on some of those? They don't play. And in some states, they're armed and they can use self-defense. And you think if they're going to take over law enforcement's job, if they're going to do this and that with all the corruption that's going on, they're going to look blindly and say, justified shooting. And they just ain't going to care. Guys, this is not the road we want to go down, but it may end up turning around that way. Well, supposedly, we have got a new song that we're going to close things out. Guys, it's been great. Thanks for joining us here once again on Gunning for CPS. I hope you guys learned a lot this time. Once again, spread the word out there, man, that the show is out there to educate, show you guys things that maybe you didn't know, and it's going to help you with your filings, both state and federal, to have a better understanding of these things and how these things and intricacies work, how to file, what agents to go through. Better get a drink, a little dry. There we go. But to go through it, but here's a new song that's come out. As we come through, we try to up some of the stuff, but it's called Gun It Down, guys. So enjoy it. Same time, same channel on YouTube, Gunning for CPS. Don't forget, we're on Facebook. We've been banned from TikTok, and there's a reason for sharing the truth. It was for misinformation, but they hate it when the truth comes out, but it's coming and it's not going to stop. We thank you guys for your support and everything you do. Don't forget to share it with somebody, and join us next week, same time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here, I guess our lives are back up on Facebook, but definitely catch us, especially if you want to interact with us. Looks like Facebook's been doing halfway decent tonight on the comments. But if not, check us out on YouTube, Gunning for CPS, and jump on the shows and share it with everybody that can educate and get a better grasp and understand what's going on and how we're fighting and how we do this together. Because we're not going to do this alone. It's not going to be one person. Hero Complex doesn't work. The only way that we bring this thing and bring it to its knees is coming together, making it public. And don't forget to get out there and share your story with others and make it well known of the corruption that's going on in your area. Thanks again, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
For Sharon's legacy will never die.